Hello everyone, my name is David and welcome to Let's Go Financial. Now you don't have to be blind Freddy to just look outside your window and see that the general economy is not doing too well at all. The general crypto market has come off the boil quite a bit too, and the price of XRP has hardly impressed in the last 12 months, with the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit continuing to cast a shadow on the token's price. The only thing that seems to be up is the crypto market fear index. So, have you made a mistake? Should you reconsider the crypto assets that you hold in your portfolio? Or is this just theatre, designed to get you to throw in the towel, to reconsider even being in the crypto market, or just thinking that you should leave things to the professionals? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you evidence that highlights the narrative that I believe is playing out. We'll look at why it's being played out this way, who stands to benefit, and how we can use this to our advantage. Here is an article that summarizes the situation between Ripple and the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is an agency of the United States federal government and whose primary purpose is to enforce the law against market manipulation. It says, in December 2020, the SEC sued Ripple Labs for issuing and selling unlicensed securities to the public, these unlicensed securities being the XRP token. The Ripple versus SEC lawsuit is still unfolding, and its findings will stand as guidelines for the cryptocurrency industry's future. And it has been this lawsuit which has been touted as the primary reason why the price of XRP has been suppressed during these last couple of years during the crypto market general bull run. But it is this comment down the bottom which I'd like to highlight, that the SEC's findings will stand as guidelines for the cryptocurrency industry's future. And I'll talk more about that later. The Ripple versus SEC lawsuit has looked like one big farce. It's been awkward for the SEC to say the least, as it says it's fighting to protect investors when investors themselves are rejecting the agency's protection. Whilst Ripple the company will continue to defend themselves, notice what an attorney named John Deaton, who is leading a class action lawsuit against the SEC, tweeted, which highlights this.
In 2018, then SEC official Bill Hinman gave a speech declaring that Ether is not a security.
We believe current offers and sales of Ether are not securities transactions.
He made us believe it was guidance to the market.
It was the first time we had expressed to the world that we didn't view Ether as a security.
But Gary Gensler's SEC says this speech was not guidance. That's not what the markets thought.
The SEC has started to weigh in just last week. Bill Hinman communicated that Ether was considered a commodity, not a security.
Even then, SEC Commissioner Robert Jackson made us think it was guidance to the market.
He gave a speech where he laid out, here's how we think about this, and gave a set of principles that the market can follow. From time to time, the SEC does its best work, not through the cumbersome and formal rulemaking process, but instead by talking to the market. Help me understand how to do this right. And we're working on it. Hinman gave a speech.
And all the while, Bill Hinman was being paid $15 million from a law firm promoting Ethereum. Then Hinman left the SEC to be a partner at the biggest crypto investment fund. Why did Bill Hinman give that speech? How many millions of reasons did he have? It's time for an investigation of the conflicts of interest by SEC officials like Hinman. Only Congress has oversight on the SEC. Demand your lawmakers support an investigation. Connect to Congress today.
So was there a genuine reason for the SEC to go after Ripple for circumventing regulation? We'll have a look at this interview between the CEO of Swift at the time, whom you see on your screen, and the CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse. And this is at the 2019 Paris FinTech Forum.
My issue with crypto assets is more that it is highly unregulated, and there is a reason we regulate things like securities and assets. There's three reasons. We found over the 5,000 years that the world has had money, we have found that money can lead to three big dangers. One is systemic risk, bank runs, and all of that. The second is it is quite easy to screw customers once value is around, etc. So you have to protect customers often against these type of schemes. And the third thing is we have found that money is typically used for nefarious activities, and money is a good way to control tax evasion and all of those things. And that's why we regulate the financial industry. That's why we have central banks. That's why we have lenders of last resort. That's why we have the SEC on securities to make sure that securities offerings are true to value. They say what they do, etc. None of that exists in the crypto world, and I think that is
none of that exists in the crypto world.
I think that's an issue.
I don't know how we can say none of that exists in the crypto world. Every Ripple transaction is going through a regulated endpoint to a regulated endpoint. There are no transactions that are not KYC. There's no transactions that are monitored for AML. So, I mean, look, I actually think using digital assets, and I had the governor of a large central bank in Southeast Asia say to me, if customers were using XRapid, which is Ripple's XRP liquidity, it actually reduces systemic risk to a country, a small economy. Let me explain briefly what that means. Today, in order to, if you're a bank in fill-in-blank country, you pre-fund accounts around the world. If you're a small economy and you're pre-funding billions of whatever the local currency is into other accounts, you actually are losing control over those. And when there are currency runs, when there are challenges for local economies, that creates risk, increases the risk systemically. So if you didn't have to pre-fund, but this is an observation that I didn't make, this is an observation that a central banker made to me, that if all of the banks in this particular country used XRapid, the systemic risk would actually go down because they'd have more sovereign control over their own currency.
Just to be clear, when we're talking crypto assets, in my mind, what I'm talking about is all the ICOs that are taking place.
We agree on that.
ICOs, Bitcoin itself. I mean, most of the users of Bitcoin these days seem to be ransomware and darknet places. So I wasn't particularly focused on XRP, which I'm sure you have under control. But if I look at the broader world of digital assets, I think it is a highly unregulated world.
You may have noticed there that the CEO of Swift hardly seemed to be concerned about Ripple trying to circumvent regulation. He did, however, express grave concerns for the broader crypto market for trying to do so. So why is it that the SEC decided to attack Ripple and its subsequent token XRP when it's well known in the industry to this very day that Ripple is probably the most regulatory compliant crypto out there? Well, it has a lot to do with Swift and what they're planning. Let's have a look at who Swift are to begin with. Swift is essentially an organisation that's owned by the banks and works in the interests of those banks. You only have to look at its board of directors to see their representation. For example, this guy here, Managing Director, Citi. This guy here, Head of Transaction Services, ING. This guy here, Executive Vice President, Head of Global Transaction Banking, OCBC Bank, Singapore. This guy here, General Manager, Head Office Clearing Department, Bank of China. This guy here, Managing Director, Head Financial Institutions, Credit Suisse. This guy here, Managing Director, Global Head of Cash Management, Deutsche Bank. This guy here, Divisional Board Member, Corporate Clients, Commerzbank. You get the point. Swift is the primary global system for international fund transfers. It has over 11,000 member institutions in over 200 countries, and every single day it moves around $5 trillion worth of funds. It is truly a big organisation, a big network of players. So what are they planning? They're actually moving and adopting the new ISO 222 standard. It says here, ISO 222 is clearly the preferred choice of messaging standard for market infrastructures around the world. By 2025, all reserve currency high-value payment systems will have fully transitioned to the rich ISO 222, and more than 90% of high-value payment system value worldwide will move on to the ISO 222 rails. Swift is making it mandatory for all financial institutions to migrate to the ISO 222 standard. So when will this standard be implemented? Well, according to Swift's own website, it says Swift will facilitate industry migration of cross-border payments and cash reporting as of the end of 2022. The migration will end by November 2025, by which time all financial institutions must be able to send and receive ISO 222 compliant messages for cross-border payments. So which cryptocurrencies are the ones that will profit or benefit by the banks migrating to the new ISO 222 standard? We'll have a look at this article from Investor Place. It says, two cryptocurrencies are not just compliant with ISO 222, they are members of the ISO 222 standards body. These currencies are Ripple with its XRP and Stellar Lumens with its XLM. Ripple is the first of the two to be added to this body. In other words, it was at the top of the list, opening up standardization for distributed ledger technology. Stellar is a part of this body through IBM, which uses Stellar to underlie its stablecoin issuing operation. So that's two cryptocurrencies here. There's a few more. Other cryptos that are compliant with ISO 222 include XDC and IOTA, together with Algorand. So that's another 3, making it 5. And right down the bottom here, it says, in addition to these 5, there are 3 more cryptos rumored to be compliant, but these cryptos are not yet officially listed as such. This list includes Hedera Hashgraph, Quant, and Cardano. There you go. Out of the very few ISO compliant cryptos, XRP has clearly stood out as the most dominant one with the deepest roots to the banks. And I'd just like to highlight this by a brief clip from the Global Islamic Economic Summit of 2018.
But it uses technologies that have already been in place for a long time. The question is, how do we use this to solve real-world problems? So Ripple has been working with banks rather than against them for the last 5 years to develop a solution that will be acceptable to them, meet the compliance requirements of regulators around the world, to then deliver a high-speed, real-time, cross-border payment platform. If you look at the way networks work today, the friction is between networks. And blockchain is simply one more network. So saying one blockchain will cover the whole world is like saying we should all be with AOL or Yahoo for the internet, and that would have solved all our problems. As we know that the internet has not grown up that way. So having multiple blockchains for different use cases is good, but you can't really talk across them. So interoperability is kind of a key problem that Ripple has sought to solve. We think that by connecting networks, you will get the greatest benefit in terms of removing friction in the movement of value around the world. We do this through something called the Interledger Protocol. This is an open protocol invented by Ripple, but now being run as an open standard by more than 300 organizations that participate in the W3C committee for it. So the idea here is that a bunch of people who have an interest in making the movement of value frictionless will collaborate to build a new protocol to enable ledgers to connect with each other. Now, we are taking all of the parallels for the development of this protocol from the internet itself. And if you look at the way email works, it's because of a standard protocol, TCP/IP, that enables information to be moved in packets around the world without your necessarily having to build bespoke integrations with people from other parts of the world. So using the same model, we have developed the Interledger Protocol, which will ultimately allow a ledger in country A to talk to a ledger in country B without having to be on the same platform. This, we think, is going to solve for the Internet of Value. We are also building a basis for smart contracts, which can be built to support applications. And the XRP ledger, which is the public ledger, uses a token or a crypto asset called XRP, which is currently the fastest on the planet, about 1,500 transactions a second.
So it seemed like 4 years ago, what the company Ripple was doing by means of the XRP token almost seemed like a done deal. So what would the SEC be trying to achieve by actually turning on the company Ripple? Well, I believe it achieves two particular outcomes. Number one, it keeps the general public away from what is most likely to be the most valuable single digital asset on the planet. But you may be asking, why would Ripple allow the token XRP to be traded by retail investors then? Well, one thing's for sure, it allows liquidity to take place for the XRP token and tests out the system. Notice how this brief clip highlights this.
To Dilip, this question comes from the audience. Many people are using cryptos just to buy and sell and make quick gains out of it. Does it hurt the growth of cryptocurrencies, that usage for a quick buck?
So it's kind of chicken and egg. You have to create a marketplace. And right now we have about 150, 200 exchanges around the world that trade in XRP. A lot of it, as you say, is very shallow trading by individuals. And that is not the use case that we are pursuing. What we are pursuing is the use of XRP as a financial asset by sophisticated institutions as a bridging mechanism. So does this hurt or harm? Well, it creates a lot of noise. And we certainly don't want that much noise, but we're waiting. And for example, this last quarter, the bulk of XRP sales were to institutional investors. And as this transitions away from retail to institutions, we'll start to use it for wholesale, financial usage. That's when the turning point will come.
Got it.
The second purpose for the SEC lawsuit against Ripple is to create a pretense for regulatory clarity for the entire crypto market. XRP at some point gets a pass, and then it will be time for the other 99.9% of cryptos out there to try and get through. Most, I suspect, will not stand a chance and be relegated to insignificance. Take a listen to how Brad Garlinghouse alludes to this at the Yahoo Finance All Market Summit in 2018.
There are exceptions that I would say, okay, that ICO, there's a real utility to that token, there's a real purpose. But look, a lot of these things I look at and I'm like, this is not going to end well. And then I think the comparisons people make to the dot-com bubble, I moved to Silicon Valley in 1997, I lived through that. There are some fair comparisons. But you also have to remember that Amazon was born in that era. You also have to remember that Google was born in that era. There are companies that are going to grow out of this crazy evolution, this crazy revolution, that are going to be very valuable. But there's also going to be some carnage along the way.
Right, absolutely.
The industry needs to go through a maturation process. Part of that maturation process is not pretending that we're going to live outside of the regulated financial markets. One of the things that has made, to Andy's point earlier, that has made Ripple a little bit contrarian and controversial is early on we were contrarian in that we said, look, we don't think governments are going away. The Bitcoin community, some in the Bitcoin community come up with a very anarchistic, libertarian view of like down with government, down with banks, and even down with fiat currency. Look, the US dollar, I mean, we can talk about other currencies around the world, but the US dollar works pretty well. I don't think the US dollar is going away in my lifetime. I don't think the US government's going away in my lifetime. The revolution that is enabled by blockchain technologies is not going to happen from outside the system. It's going to happen from within the system. And the thing I think actually is a disservice to the revolution is to pretend that we can live outside of a regulatory framework.
Whilst the average guy in the street may have been spooked by the fall of the XRP price, exacerbated by the SEC's lawsuit against the company Ripple, to the point where they would even reconsider their entire crypto strategy, there are many people who know the true value of what they hold and will hold the course no matter what happens. We should expect official regulatory clarity to be given before the start of the migration period to the ISO standard, which starts in November 2022 and runs through to November 2025, when the banks could officially then buy and hold it. One should also expect the price of the XRP token to start appreciating before the ISO 222 migration date begins, as the price of XRP needs to be high enough to facilitate the $5 trillion worth of transactions that SWIFT do on a daily basis. The entire crypto market today is only 1.7 trillion, so it's got a fair way to go. So what can happen between now and then? Well, anything that would cause you to give up or pry out of your hands the single most valuable asset that you hold. Before the show is completely over, we can expect more of the same theatre, but only cranked up. The lengths that people will go through to secure their long-term wealth at your expense should not surprise. But like all things though, only invest what you can afford to lose. Buy a little bit each month or perhaps each week, or have price targets where if it keeps falling, you can dollar cost average your way in. But whatever you decide to do, I sincerely wish you the very best.